For this next exercise, it's a big one. And it's one of the exercises that, because it takes so long and it's so, for many people, emotional, a lot of people say this is the turning point in the workshop for them. That it turned a fair workshop into a great workshop, or it turned a not so good workshop into an acceptably good workshop, or it turned a great workshop into life transforming. Now, of course, you'll decide whether you like this exercise or not. But it's one of the ways that you can get anything on your list. Because what the exercise is about is putting everything from your past that keeps you from moving forward into the past. Now, I know this workshop is not about the past. It's about the present and the future. But sometimes to move to the future and to create the future you want, it's really hard because you're locked in the past. And it's difficult to be locked in the past. It's like, you know, there's this thing, and it's your story about something that happened long ago, and maybe you were 7, and you carry it around. And then you got another one. And this is a story about when you were in high school, and you carry that around. And then you got another one. And this is that time you got divorced. And boy, that's really heavy. And you carry that around. And then there's that time that you got sick and you didn't really recover. And you got that, and you're carrying that around. And then you're trying your darndest to get to the future. And to me, you know people like this? I mean, I know you've never been like this, but you know people like it. So I'm recommending that you use this next exercise to take that sickness that you had, and even if you still have it, you put it in the past. And you take that trauma that you had with that relationship, and you let it go. And you put it back to where it belongs. Back then, when you were 3 and you were 7. That's the idea of the exercise. And in order to do this exercise, you want to make a list of what you'd like to leave behind. Now, this doesn't mean you'll forget it. It just means that it won't bother you anymore. Because you'll never forget that time you were that sick. You probably don't want to forget that relationship that fell apart. And you don't want to forget the lessons you learned when you were 7 or 3. But what you do want to do is not be burdened by them anymore. So this is the goal of this exercise, to get unburdened. What is it about human beings that hold on? And I think it's because it's security. You know, we know this problem, and we know this struggle, and we know that burden, and it's comfortable. If you walk around life for a while with this burden, and then all of a sudden you let it go, it's like, wow, this is really weird. It's uncomfortable. If you've been carrying around these points of view about yourself that were formed when you were young, and you do let them go, you feel naked. So I think I think that's part of the mechanism. It's scary to be unburdened. The future is really open when we're unburdened, and we don't have the comfort of our old problems and our old resentments and our old guilts and our old points of view that don't serve us anymore, but they're comfortable. Maybe. But wherever we hold on to them, I'm asking now that you release them. And I'm going to give you a format to do so. Now, it's just a format. It's just a structure. It doesn't work unless you play along, because it just is kind of a corny exercise if you don't play along. So I'm going to tell you about it so you know what we're going to do, and then I'm going to ask you to play along like it's meaningful to you. Make it meaningful by participating fully. So here's how we're going to do it. First of all, I'm going to have you list on 3x5 cards everything you want to release. Everything from your past that no longer serves you. I'll do that in a few minutes. And I'm going to give you a lot of examples. So you're going to come up with a lot of them. Then I'm going to give you an opportunity to go through them and prioritize them. And like always, I'm going to give you an opportunity to hear from a few others so that you can maybe add to your list. And then I'm going to have you go from here up to a park about 3 blocks north, where Bill is currently making a fire. And when you get there, I'm going to have you take these 3x5 cards and burn them. And then I'm going to have you feel free of the past. Now, of course, it doesn't work unless you do it. I mean, you can't just go through the motions. You got to kind of go through the emotion of it. So I'm going to ask that you actually create some emotion about it. Now, for some of you, this is easy because you wear your emotion on your sleeve. You know, in other words, it's easy to bring up emotion. I don't want you to fake emotion, but I want you to allow the emotion. Because the more you allow emotion and the more emotion that occurs, the more likely it is that when you burn that, you'll remember it, and it'll be one of those life-altering events where you've truly left the past in the past. If you want to truly and completely choose to let go of your job, this would be a great exercise. Because you can burn a 3x5 card that says job. You can even burn a 3x5 card that says hate my job, or whatever it is about your job that has you let go of it. Now, that doesn't mean that when you get back you won't have a job. It's just that you won't have any attachment to the job. You won't have any past with the job. And then you can quit it, and then you can give notice if you want. Of course, you could also not, because sometimes when people truly let go of something, all of a sudden it shows up newly. Just like some of you will realize when you start to think about it that you have some relationships in your life that you'd like to end. You'd like to let go of them. They just don't serve you anymore. You see these people over and over again and you just don't want to see them anymore and you want to let go of the relationship. Well, put that person's name down, say goodbye to that person today, and then next time they call, you can say, "Who?" Or you can politely, gently let them go. It can be really big, it can be small and trivial. It really depends upon how much you choose to let go and how vigorously you do it. You could write down the event that you, of course, will never forget, but you want to release its hold on you because it had a hold. Something traumatic may have happened. And so then on another card, you could write down some of the feelings that you had about that event and let them go. Yeah. I did this a few years after my mother passed away, and it wasn't that I ever wanted to let go of my mother or let go of what she taught me and how much she loved me, but I wanted to let go of kind of a habitual grief. Now, some people, they grieve for months or a year or two, and then they let it go. But for some reason, I grieved longer. I grieved longer than I wanted to grieve. So I let go of the grief. Curse not the mom. All right, let's start. On 3x5 cards, begin to make a list, one per card, very important, one per card, of what you would like to let go of. What about your past would you like to release? What has a hold on you that you want to have let go of? Just think about, are there some people in your life, or even in your past, they may not even be in your present life, but they're still so in your consciousness that you just like, let me go. Guilt that you have. Guilt that you have over a mistake that you might have made, or something you did that you feel guilty about. A little guilt for a short amount of time can be extraordinarily useful, but if you've had that guilt for too long, it's probably tearing at you. Maybe it's time to let it go. If so, write it down. Write down some mistake that you want to no longer feel guilty about, or some action that you want to feel no longer guilty about. You could write down a commitment that you've made that you don't want anymore. And then eventually, of course, you'll communicate to the people that you're no longer committed. Commitments don't have to be life sentences. If a commitment's a life sentence, it's not a commitment, it's a prison, it's a burden. It's an obligation. So do you have some commitments that you've made that you'd like to let go of? If so, write it on the card. Resentments, here's another one. For those of you who aren't writing, think about, do you have any resentments of others? And you've realized, okay, I've resented them long enough. I don't need to resent that person anymore because it's holding me back. Resentments are when you haven't forgiven somebody. So another way to talk about it is, are you ready to forgive someone for their past mistake? That's a resentment. Related to that is anger. Are you really still mad at somebody for something that occurred a long time ago, and you want to now acknowledge that maybe anger for a little while was all right, but it's keeping you back? Here's something else that really keeps people back, are old ideas about themselves. So do you have any ideas about yourself? Psychologists call it self-concept or self-esteem that aren't true anymore. Maybe when you're young, somebody told you you weren't good at math. And you know you are, but you still have this little voice that says, I'm not good at math. And you want to let it go. Or maybe you're not even sure if you're good at math, but you are sure you have a little voice, an idea, a belief that says you're not good at math. In which case, why don't you write not good at math on a card? Or not good at spelling? Or not good at singing? Or not good at whatever. I've got some more. I got lots of these. Some of you have a picture of yourself that's inaccurate, like that you're too big, too fat. Or some of you think you're too thin, too small. Or some of you think you're not pretty or handsome. So if you have one of those points of view that you'd like to let go of, write it down. Now what if you say, yeah, but I really am not handsome? Well, give it a shot. Write it down, burn it, put it away, and people around you, I think, will start imagining and telling you how much more handsome you are. Or beautiful, or thin, or tall, or short. Oh, here's a good one. Some of you have a point of view that your parents messed you up. Say, yeah, but they really did. Well, maybe. But isn't it time to let it go? I mean, they did their best. Maybe they didn't do so good. But, I mean, hey, you're here. They didn't do that badly. Some of you might want to let go of a drug addiction. We've had people burn their last pack of cigarettes. We've had people burn and destroy their watch when they were way too time conscious. So you don't have to only burn what you have on those cards. You could actually burn or destroy some kind of symbol.